I am in pain today. Your process doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is me, I will exercise my own process. And so what I did is I was able to locate the CEO of the insurance company, the CEO of the medical group, the vice president, all of the reps, and I sent out a mass letter by physical mail because I'm a big fan of that because I think it gives more impact. And I think I found 20, 25 people, and all of a sudden I'm getting the medical care I need. So we did something different a couple of years ago. We had a flood in our house, and they had to move us out of our house because literally a third of our house was just destroyed. And so we were in a rental. The house was then completely fixed, and we could not get back in because the insurance company refused to pay the movers that were holding all of our things. So our house is sitting there ready for us to come back, and we can't move in. And it was because apparently the insurance company was fighting with the contractor about the cost. And again, it was one of those things where I don't care. I care that my family is not in our home. How much it costs you is not my problem. So I was able to get hold of the vice president of Travelers Insurance. And all of a sudden there was a check cut overnight.
What?
And literally within 24 hours, my contractor had a check in his hand for like $85,000, and we were back in our house within days.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounds like we didn't have an agent.
We did, and he wasn't responding. He was just kind of taking his time. It was a nightmare. But this is typically a method of last resort. I don't go straight to the top, but when things like this happen, I rattle cages and I rattle cages other people don't think are rattling. It's like, I want to talk to your supervisor. Well, your supervisor is going to give you the same middle finger as their person below. So these materials, I'm going to go kind of out of order. This was just kind of a logical way I thought through it, but
those are the answers.
yes. So the one I actually want to get into first is one of these small ones called the 2 Selves method. This is a thing I came up with. I got sober 15 years ago, and I realized at the time I was making very poor decisions, obviously. And I also realized that even though when I got sober, my instinct was still to make very poor decisions. When I was in my home, thinking things through calmly, I knew, okay, here's what I need to do in each given situation. Because I would script it. If I have to go to the grocery store, how do I make sure I don't go anywhere near the alcohol? And so when I was in my home in a calm situation, I knew exactly what to do. But when I got out into the real world and I had these temptations, I was all thrown out the window. All of a sudden, I've got this raw emotional state. That happens a lot in court. If you're sitting at home, you're practicing your arguments, you're maybe practicing in front of a mirror, you're talking to your friends, and you've got all of this stuff, and then you get in front of a judge, and half of it leaves your head. So what I created was called the 2 Selves method. In my head, I split myself into two. There was the part of me that was the calm, rational person sitting in my home, coming up with these arguments and processes and everything else that a sane person needed to do. And I wrote it down. Whatever I had to do, I wrote it down, and I actually had a cheat sheet in my back pocket. And then when I went out in public, I was able to tell myself I had enough wherewithal to say, okay, this person out in public is a different person. This is the one who can't think, who's making the wrong decisions. And so I would tell myself, okay, bust out this cheat sheet, and whatever this guy said, which was a previous me, do whatever he says. Follow your instructions. And so I split myself into fictional two people. And so when I started to panic, I could bring out this script that I had from my rational self and follow it. And so it's a great tool in court, because I've been in court plenty of times, obviously. I still can get frustrated. It's tough when a judge goes sideways on you. And if it's about your kids, it is so easy to just absolutely go off in a different direction. So that is definitely something I highly recommend. And then kind of moving into the court thing, when you're dealing, I mean, since we've got issues here with custody is a big one for so many people. And one thing, I don't know how many of you have had the misfortune of your ex being a narcissist or some sort of there you go, or some sort of severe emotional abuser. They have a tendency to be really charming sometimes in court. Unless they're a physical abuser, then it's really easy for them to lose their shit. Hope you don't mind my language. So some of these people, they give themselves away in court. Some of them are really charming, and the judge doesn't believe them. And it's nothing hurts more than to watch a judge believe your abuser. And I know for myself, I made the mistake once of saying that my ex was abusive, and I had a judge literally laugh in my face. So that's pretty disarming. So when you go into court, the other thing an abuser typically does is they will throw everything at the wall they can think of. And they will go back a decade if they need to. And they will go on for 20 minutes talking about what a piece of garbage you are and throw everything that they can imagine, true or false. Our instinct when the judge gets back to you is to go point by point exactly why every single one of those things is false and why this is going to be important up. Judges hear that all day, every day. And what you're doing in that situation, first of all, don't ever go point by point when you're on the defense. Take control. In that situation, especially when you're talking about protecting children, you don't want to be having that person's narrative. Don't let them be in control. And as long as they're making these accusations, you're responding point by point, they are in total control of you. So when my ex would do that, the judge would turn to me and say, okay, Mr. Rader, what do you have to say about that? And I would say, you know what? So much of that is true, I don't even know where to get started. I'm not going to go point by point. What do you want to hear from me, Judge? And you could see half the times just the relief on the judge's face. And then he or she would say, okay, well, I've got this question and that question, and that'll be the end of it. And I've regained control of the conversation. Now we're having my conversation, not that person's. And it's a great, especially because since judges see it all day, every day, you go point by point, they're going to be mad at both of you, and you are absolutely not going to be able to convince the judge that you are the victim of abuse, unless you've got bruises to prove it. And since Sacramento is particularly bad, it's actually been recognized nationwide as one of the most corrupt family courts. Yeah, there's articles and websites about Sacramento family court. In the last 25 years, in all of Sacramento, we've had five judges, admonished by the California Judicial Council, which is it's kind of the state bar version of discipline over judges. 5 judges in the last 25 years in all of Sacramento County, every single one out of that courthouse. So the family court is, yes.
Do you know Placer County's reputation for family court?
I do. So they are hit and miss.
Okay. Better than Sacramento?
Better than Sacramento, but that's not a tall order.
Yeah.
What's unfortunate, they had a really phenomenal judge. He was a commissioner. And he was...
Are you talking about Paulson?
No. It's been a number of years.
Paulson was really awesome too, but he was walking out.
Yeah, this particular judge was escorted out by security.
Wow.
And it was, I don't know what he did, but he was a phenomenal judge. Just to give you an idea, there was a case I was sitting in on. I wasn't involved in the case, but I was watching. And it was a woman asking for child support. And the father, and they shared 50-50 custody. The father was making, close to minimum wage. And the mother had married a surgeon. And she had a boatload of money. But she wasn't working. So her income was zero. His income was $35,000. If you plug the numbers into the calculation sheet, he owes her child support. And this particular commissioner said, you know what, no, this is ridiculous. You are obviously abusing the system. And so he chose to deviate from the law. It actually, he was legally permitted to make that deviation, but you don't see that very often.
Yeah, they don't stand up.
Yeah, and you don't see, for instance, when someone's hiding
They go
information.
textbook.
Yeah, it's cookie cutter law, and it's aggravating. Actually, it's beyond aggravating. It's a nightmare. So So, but yeah, El Dorado County is hit and miss. Not as bad as Sacramento. But then I think if you're in just about any custody court, it's going to be a nightmare. So, yeah, and that's something I at some point want to change at the legislative level, because there's a number of things. So I also work in federal bankruptcy court, and I'm really dealing with federal bankruptcy judges and versus family judges is night and day. Because federal bankruptcy judges, they do their job. They do it well. They know the law, and they do it with compassion. They don't judge people who are bankrupt. It's an absolutely amazing atmosphere, especially here in Sacramento. So I want to see changes at the legislative level that forces local court judges at the state level to behave in an ethical and honest manner. And there's not a whole lot that needs to be changed. One thing that they do in Yuba County, which I don't want to be in Yuba County, but this would be a great place to be in family court, is that if someone brings too many motions, they get hit every time. They get hit with, no, you know what? That was absolutely without merit. You pay the other side $5,000. And they keep doing it until the person stops bringing frivolous motions. In my case, the judges are just letting it happen. I had Ethan do a count of every court appearance, every mediation, and over the last 8 years, I've had 100 days of my life, more than 100 days of my life, tied up in court for mediation. And 98% of that was not generated by me. So these are the things I really want to see change. It's going to take some work to get it at the legislative level. But anyway, but back to advocacy, especially when you're in court, the first thing you need to do is determine what is and is not worth fighting. And this is also a good thing in all of, anytime you're in self-advocacy, anytime you need to advocate for yourself. Because we know our lives better than anybody. And there's always complications. There's always, okay, I've got 50 things I want to get across, because to me they are all important. When in reality, you've got someone's attention for about 5 minutes, maybe 10. You can't go through 50 things. So you have to pick out which things are the most important, and figure out which ones you got to swallow your pride and let go. If your ex, for example, is feeding your kids sugar breakfast, morning, and dinner, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner, yeah, that's distressing because it has a whole lot of health problems. But in comparison to other things that's going on, maybe physical abuse that somehow is not going to have bruises, things that are really much more important, you may have to let go of something that is important, like feeding your kids sugar nonstop. So the first thing you have to really think of is, okay, what do I let go of? And the same thing with medical care, the same thing dealing with landlords, insurance companies. All right, what should I let go? And be brutally honest and recognize, okay, I have to eat some of this, and I have to be okay with this. I have to accept I can't share this, or I can't fight for this. And it's an ego wound. It's hard. And then from there, one of the small outlines is what I call the sandwich method. When you're dealing with just about anybody and you're advocating for yourself, judges are a perfect example. The human brain, for some reason, when you're dealing with a complicated argument, we pay attention at the beginning, we pay attention at the end. Everything in the middle is often lost. So whatever your most important points are, they go at the beginning, they go at the end. So you're sandwiching, and then all the stuff that you still feel is important and needs to get out there but is weaker, put it in the middle. But that also includes things that the other side is accusing you of that you think is bullshit. It goes more in the middle because you want to show whoever you're advocating, whoever you're pleading to, this stuff in the middle, it's unimportant. I want you to pay attention to the most important things. And burying negative things about you right in the middle is going to make it easier for a judge to not pay attention to them. And also, the other thing is, when you're advocating for yourself, ask yourself, like I said, you know your life better than anybody. You know what it is you want. You know all the important points. Before you start making them, ask yourself, all right, what does the other side believe? And what are they going to say? And matter of fact, if I were them, how would I be?
Devil's advocate. Playing devil's advocate.
Well, even more so. I mean, I like to tell people that when I go into court, especially, or any other situation, if I walk in not knowing what side, and literally as I walk in the door, someone flips a coin and says, argue that side, I'm prepared. Because as long as you're prepared for both sides, you know how to knock that other person out. You also know how they might be able to win against you, and you can prepare for it. So there's no surprises. And that's a lot of times where you want to bury your argument in the middle. You want to get it out there to say, look, this person's going to say this about me. Here's why it's nonsense. But that's defense. You don't want your defensive arguments as on the sandwich or on the bread side of your arguments, because now, again, you're playing their game. You've given them control of the conversation. So bury it in the middle, maintain control of the conversation. So, yeah, redirection is really, really important. So, and then I get in here, I think, briefly but not briefly. So every relationship of any kind, personal or professional, has a power structure. With personal relationships, like a marriage or significant other, that power structure is constantly changing. You know, maybe your partner does dishes 90% of the times, and you know, the power structure is that person does more around the house than you do. So you're in a weaker position if they say, hey, can you please help out with the dishes? You're in a weaker position to say no, unless you're an ass. In those, I mean, that's a really, not a great example, but these power positions are constantly being changed. When you're going into advocacy, those power positions are very important. Because if you're in a weak position and you come in acting like you own the place, you're going to lose. You're going to lose because the judge knows you're in a weak position. Whoever you're talking to knows you're in a weak position. So the tone you take, the manner in which you approach it, like let's say you've got a manipulative ex that for some reason the judge is believing, you go in aggressive, now all of a sudden you look like the abuser. And they call it reactive abuse. I don't know how many of you have had the unfortunate displeasure of being in an abusive relationship, but when they abuse you, you abuse back. It's called reactive abuse. And it's natural, it's instinctual, it's defensive, and it's totally acceptable as far as I'm concerned. But judges and police see it as now you're the abuser. And so if you're in that weaker position, you have to change the way you handle things. You have to tone things down. You can't be screaming, you can't be aggressive, because the judge needs to see you as a different person. If they've already leaning towards you're the abuser, okay, don't act like an abuser. Act like someone who is quiet, reserved. And this is also where the script comes in. Keeping yourself quiet, reserved, so you don't lose control. And then we've got, let's see, I'm trying to think of other real world examples, because I don't want to just keep talking about court, because not all of them are in court. Well, one example could be asking for a raise at work. First, again, you want to go into it. You want to know what your strengths are, what your boss's strengths are. Why do you deserve a raise? Why are they going to tell you you don't? And be prepared to respond to whatever it is they throw at you. And then also be prepared in the situation of asking for a raise. Be prepared to go over what you bring to the table. Don't go in screaming, I deserve a raise, I've been here for 5 years. You piece of garbage, you haven't given me a raise, I deserve it. No, go in and say, look, here's everything I offer the company. And I think that merits some extra pay. In that situation, even better if you've already talked to other employers and gotten other job offers. Then you can go in and say, look, I want to stay here. I need more money. I have to feed my family. This is nothing personal, it's business. And if you can't keep me at the rate I need, I'm going to have to go to some of these others that are offering me the pay raise.
What? No.
So that's one example, and then the medical example is, I like to go back to that because it is something that affects all of us. At some point in your life, if you haven't already, you will be facing a doctor who does not care. You may be going in with chronic pain, and you don't care, or they just throw pills at you that don't do anything, have no side effects, and then you're going to hit red tape. Research what your rights are. ChatGPT in that situation is your friend. I'll get into that a little bit later because there's some limitations to ChatGPT and AI. Use it as a research tool. But find out what your rights are when it comes to medical care. For instance, everyone has the right to a second opinion. I believe that may be by law. But if you're not getting the care you need and you're hearing nonsense from someone, okay, I want a second opinion. And I want a second opinion from Stanford. I don't want it from one of your colleagues who's also going to blow me off. I want it from an expert, a true expert of my choosing. If that doesn't work, then you start going up the chain. This is a great segue into ChatGPT and how I find these people in authority. The executive at every major corporation don't want to be found. They just don't, because then they get inundated with all of this nonsense, or not nonsense, but inundated with people who are trying to reach them. So there's a few places to go to. First, corporationwiki.com will tell you the corporate structure, it will tell you its place of business. You can also go to the California Secretary of State, it will tell you where its principal place of business is, and you can start writing physical letters there. Internet search just for finding out who the CEO is, you can get a name easy, just type it into Google. Who's the CEO of Sutter Health? Boom, you've got that. And now that you've got the corporate headquarters, you can put it to the attention of the CEO. But you also want to actually, whoever opens that letter is not going to give it to the CEO. So you want to find the CEO. So what I had ChatGPT do in this particular scenario a few weeks ago, I asked it, what's the CEO's email? It said, I don't know. I said, okay, does Sutter Health have a particular naming convention for their emails? Meaning, is there, because any corporation will have so-and-so at sutterhealth.org. Can you figure that out based upon any other email addresses you can find? And this is, here's some possibilities. I said, okay, I want you to generate every potential email address that matches that naming convention. And I'm going to send it out to and it gave me 3 for each one, and for every single one that it gave me, 2 of them were wrong, and 1 of them was right. So even though their email address is nowhere, I was able to narrow it down and figure it out. So this is one of the great things about ChatGPT, where you can actually get through. And once you get through to the CEO, they don't want to deal with it. They pass it off to someone. It's like, look, someone else, get this person to leave me alone. And all of a sudden, you get the care you need, you get the attention that you need and require. So these things take some creativity to be able to get to the people in charge. Because you just, there are children here, so I can't say exactly what I want to say. But I mean,
They've heard it.
yeah, fair enough. But when you dial an 800 number, especially if you're trying to get through to somebody, you don't know who's picking up on the other end. You don't even know if they're in the United States, and they're reading off the script. I don't want to deal with that person. I want to deal with the person who makes decisions. So that's another part of self-advocacy that's really important. So let's see. Going back to ChatGPT for research, if you're in the legal field and you're doing something also support, custody, there's a few things I want you to research. Very first thing is the judge. Because they say a good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. Find out. And if you don't know a lawyer in that courthouse because you don't have a family or friend there, call up a local family law attorney, get a free consult. Pretend like you're ready to pay them. They will give you an hour of their time or more, and you just got a free hour of legal advice.
Really?
Yeah. Which is, no, but that's, and then you can also ask them, you know, I want to know what the law is, I want to know what my rights are. Yes.
If you want to be a little bit malicious too, you can call every single one, because once they talk to you and have it in their system, then they can't talk to the other person. And then they can't get their free consultation in the area. From what I hear.
Yes. No, you're correct, because unfortunately, as soon as you have a consultation, you've created an attorney-client relationship, even though you haven't paid them and you haven't hired them, they are bound by attorney-client privilege. And so if they've already met with you, they have information about the case, so your ex cannot meet with them. And that's assuming, though, that the lawyer does an appropriate conflicts check. Sometimes they don't. But yes, technically. And I absolutely would not suggest doing that. So we'll just throw it out there as a thing you can do. And do with that as you will. But yes, but find out what the judge likes to hear and what the judge doesn't like to hear. Find out if the judge has a gender preference. Do they favor women? Do they favor men? And I've seen there does not seem to be any rhyme or reason. I've seen female judges who have a definite prejudice against women, and they almost 75% of the time they give custody to the father, whether it makes sense or not. And then so every judge has their own bias of some kind. Find out what it is. Find out when they were sworn in. ChatGPT will tell you that one. You can just ask. Here's the name of the judge. I want to know when they were sworn in. That'll give you an idea of how new they are, how experienced they are. That can give you some information about their potential biases. Do you have your feet up? You're scratching. Got it. All right. And then when you're in your free consult, you've got knowledge of the law, things like that. Ask them. I'm in front of this judge. What is this judge like? What do they not want to hear from you? What do they want to hear from you? Because every judge is different. Every judge has a different level of patience. So then, once you've gotten to know them, you can fashion your arguments based upon your audience. Then we can go into researching the law. If you're not a lawyer, go easy on that. Get familiar with the law. Don't cite the judge case law, because they know that you're not a lawyer. You could be completely right, they're still not going to believe you. And they're also not going to do their own legal research. So stick with things that are better. Statutes you can cite, because those are easily accessible by people who are not lawyers. So if you wanted to get into any legal argument as to what your rights are, cite the statutes, not the case law, because that's just something that really should be for a lawyer to argue. And even better, try to avoid actual legal citations, discuss legal principles, and fashion your argument from there. For instance, I mean, there's a presumption in California that has been since 1977, 78, that it used to be that women were determined by default to be the primary caregivers, and were by default given custody upon divorce. That changed in the 70s. Now the presumption is 50-50. Which has done some great things for fathers. It's wreaked havoc in many other ways. So you have to know that if you've got a reasonable judge and you don't have bruises, on the other side, and your ex is charming, you have a much higher likelihood of them getting joint custody. And be prepared for that. Be prepared for whatever it is that judge may need to hear that rebalances those scales more in your direction. So. The other thing to think about ChatGPT, any citations it gives you, double check. I don't know how familiar are you with AI? Somewhat. I was dead against it until about 9 months ago, and then I started playing with it, and now I'm totally hooked. But there was about 9 months to a year ago, there were two attorneys out of New York that decided to use ChatGPT as a research tool. And ChatGPT especially, it's been programmed to make you happy. And it'll lie to do that. And it gave a lot of legal citations to cases that didn't exist. And those judges got in significant trouble with the local state bar. I don't know if they got suspended or not, but they got into a lot of trouble. You're not running that risk, but whatever legal citations ChatGPT gives you, any information it gives you, go double check. Because you don't want to be repeating something that it lied to you about. And if you catch it in a lie, it'll say, oh, you know what, you're right, I messed that one up. Here's a different lie. So you definitely have to make sure that you're double checking its work. It's a tool, you can't rely on it. The other thing about ChatGPT though that is phenomenal is once you've set up, you've got the rational you that we talked about, the two selves, you've got the rational you, come up with these arguments. You've already done your research on the judge or insurance company, whoever it is you need to talk to. Go into ChatGPT and tell them, look, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, here's my audience. First of all, what's the best way to do it? Do I come at it aggressive? Or do I need to dial it back? Or if you already know that you're out of control, be very well aware of yourself. If you're out of control, know it. If you know that your emotions are getting way too much of you, which, hell, I mean, we all have done it. I've done it. In my own case, it's hard to just separate yourself from wanting to protect the stores, especially the kids. Run it through ChatGPT. Whatever you've got written out, whatever script you created, run it through ChatGPT and say, how do I make this so I don't anger a judge? Or do the opposite. I recently had a situation where I did want to anger a judge. And but I was in a position, because my son is very, very close to aging out. We've had joint custody all these years. Things have gone sideways, but he's so close to 18. I was like, you know what? I can finally say what I want to say, because I want it. And so what I told ChatGPT is, okay, here's my script. This is what I want to say to the judge. I want to make him angry. And first it came back with me, said, you need to speak with counsel, don't get the judge angry. I was like, no. I am counsel. I want the judge angry. So it was like, okay, and it gave me a strong version. And I said, you know what? No, I want it strong. I said, I want to get to the razor's edge of contempt without being held in contempt. And I kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until it refined it to an argument that was really beautiful. And I nailed the judge so hard, that entire courthouse now hates me because the judges talk to each other. But I had the judge every which way. I had him upside down and backwards. And I really did. Right on the razor's edge of contempt. He was about to hold me in contempt when I told him he couldn't. And then he said, what? You think I can't? I said, nope, sure can. And I had all legal citations of why he couldn't, which just made him even more angry. And I did exactly what I wanted, and ChatGPT made it happen. For the most part, most people need the opposite. This is also a good thing when you're emailing people. If you're emailing ex, emailing doctors, and you know that you're emotionally, you're really worried about how the other side's going to take it. Because I was always told that what you communicate is not what comes out of your mouth. What you communicate is what the other person hears. So you have to know your audience. So running it through ChatGPT is great because you can say, here's where I am. Here's who I'm talking to. Can you do what you need to do? Don't either dumb this down or calm it down so that it's most likely to have the effect that I want it to have. And it does a really great job of that. Definitely emails too. You can just upload it straight there. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend that. Redirection. This is another important tool, definitely in your personal life. So this applies to even fights you have with your significant other. Going back to the court example, they're throwing all of this crap at you, and you're taking control of the situation. Let's say it's an interpersonal relationship. You come to your significant other and say, you know what, you really hurt my feelings when you did this. Some people are receptive to that. Other people are not. And their instinct is going to be, well, what about you? What about when you did this? And now all of a sudden, what you brought into the conversation is dead and gone. Because now you're on the defense. Redirect, always maintain your focus of, okay, I came into this, I was hurt by this action. no matter what the other person says, redirect it. And redirect it with kindness and say, look, I definitely want to talk about the things that are upsetting you. Right now, can you please discuss what's upsetting you? Once we've got that resolved, then we can move on to whatever issues you've got, because I want to hear you. And this way you maintain control of the conversation without letting them take control. That's the most critical aspect of this. So, and it's another hard skill to use. Also, as part of that, when you're in a personal relationship, when you're coming to someone with, I was hurt by this, use the I statements. You accuse them of anything, unless, of course, they cheated on you and you've got proof, and you accuse them of one. But anything, hurt feelings or anything, the moment you say, you did this, you've lost them. They're gone. They are straight on the defensive. They're not listening. If instead you turn it on yourself and say, you know what, I'm hurt. My feelings were hurt because this occurred. Your feelings are valid. They can't be argued, even if they try. Your feelings are never wrong. They're yours. So you're entitled to feel hurt. You're not entitled to your own facts. You're entitled to feel whatever you're feeling. So keep it on I statements. And that the same thing goes with advocacy. When you're talking to your doctors, I don't feel like I'm getting the care that I'm entitled to. Instead of, you're not doing your job. Because as soon as you say you're not doing your job, they're not going to do your job. And then the same, court's a little bit different, that gets a lot more nuanced, but when in your personal life, the less accusation you make, the more you're going to get out of the situation, what you need from it. So, direction. So, for a lot of these things, self-reflection is very important. A lot of people aren't in the habit of reflecting on themselves, especially their own weaknesses. Try to get into that habit. Recognize where you are weak. And I don't mean weak in the sense of a weak person, but know where your buttons are. Especially if it's your ex, even if it's your current, they know what your buttons are probably better than you do. Figure them out. Figure out what your own buttons are so you know that if they're pushed, you can stop yourself from reacting. Because it's an automatic response. If someone pushes that button, it just instantly, your response is typically something not constructive. So know what those buttons are. If you're in court and you want to show the judge that this other person is abusive, know what their buttons are. Make sure that you do it in such a way that the judge doesn't know you're doing it. My ex hates to be flattered because she knows that when I say it, it's condescending. So when I say something like, she's a great mom, this and that, it drives her crazy. It's weird. But it's much more likely to get her to blow up. I've had bailiffs almost take her out because I did something and nobody knew I was pushing the buttons. So, in that situation, know what their buttons are and make sure you do it in such a way that you know that nobody else is going to see that you're pushing those buttons. On the flip side, as soon as you know what your buttons are and you start pushing them, you know not to react because you already know what to do. So be very self-aware of buttons. And it's also, again, like interpersonal relationships. If you're with someone for any length of time, they know what their buttons. They know exactly how to push them. Some people know exactly how to get out of an argument simply by redirecting, pushing their button. Well, what about this time you did this? If you know that already that about yourself, and you know that that's what they're doing, then you know how to shut it down and stop that automatic response in your own. So it's a way of regaining agency, keeping control of yourself. So. While I'm looking, does anybody have any questions? Anything in particular?
Yes. So in my case, my ex left me during my work injury last year to leave to legal. So he left me with the kids at home, healing and trying to deal with all that. Okay. So this year, January, he says I'm gonna move forward with the divorce. And so he did, but then, he failed to pay the mortgage, which he has full access of the loan. I have no access to it. The link to, that sends it to his phone when you're trying to get it. So he has control of that. So he used our mortgage money to invest to crypto. That's what he claims. So now he has not been paying the mortgage for the last 4 months, and he's staying there. So he co-signed the place I'm living at because our lender advised him, I need you to co-sign because your ex needs a place to live with their children because you did this.
Again,
And so he's using that. So he's buying things for the kids and doing all this nice things to the kids. Mind you, he still doesn't pay the mortgage. And he's like emotionally and economically abusing me right now. On the back, he's betraying his great father and stuff. So I don't know what to do at this point in that sense.
do you have any support orders or custody orders in place?
No, I've been working so much. I've had 2 jobs. My mind's so busy. I had a full concussion and knee fracture, so my brain is working. I'm in speech therapy, so there's so much I can take.
Yeah, and then, trust me, I understand that. Does he have the financial ability to make those payments?
Yes, he does business administration at Krispy Kreme in North Cal, and that's the company where I got injured from. So I feel like, since January they've been paying me off a lot. So I don't know if they know that I'm in this place or whatever. And so I haven't been really getting much of the work because Monday through Friday I'm a teacher, and then weekends I was working for them. So I'm a Montessori preschool teacher in downtown San, and I'm the assistant director there. So I have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And
God,
then
I
my
couldn't do
4
that job.
kids.
My kids are all grown, almost completely, so that's.
Yeah, I've been a teacher since 2009, an assistant director for the past 4 years. Yeah. I just couldn't take the title of director because he travels so much, and I'm pretty much been a single mom for a long time. He leaves to work, but then I found out that it's voluntary, it's not mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't get paid under the table then? He's got regular
No,
paychecks?
the company pays for the hotel stays, the money, the food stuff, and a separate credit card. Yeah, so then I'm with the kids all the time. But when he comes, he's Mr. Awesome Dad, so, why is him and dining room?
So you have a number of options.
Yeah.
You could file a support order as part of that request. There's, and if you want to contact me later, I can help you with the forms.
Yeah.
There's a portion on the forms that asks for other relief, and in it, but I want an order that he pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And the great thing about support judges, and this is pretty much universal, even in Crooked, Sacramento, they don't care. They look at numbers, that's what they care about.
Yeah.
So whether they have a bias towards men, bias towards women, bias towards anybody, doesn't matter. Numbers are numbers, that's what they go from. It's aggravating because it means they don't deviate in certain circumstances where it's appropriate, but numbers are numbers. So as soon as you file a support request, you will submit your own income and expense declaration with your pay stubs. He will submit his because he's by law required to. So then you'll see what his income is. And the judge can make an order based on that. The judge can make an order that he make payments.
But we're selling the house right now, but 4 months hasn't paid it, and he's been there. Oh, I'm paying my car and my leasing on my house of the place I'm staying at. And he just got a car.
Okay. Are you expecting any problems with the sale in terms of inside documents?
Well, supposedly, we're both working with the realtor, and supposedly, she says it goes to some really thing, and then I can have it gets out.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's just taking advantage of that, economically. Yeah, I don't know what to do.
So, do you know what his income is?
No, I have no idea since of last year. He said he was, he was the regional director, but then supposedly, that's what he said, that he was stepped down. I don't know why.
Do you know what his income was when he was director?
Yeah, he was like, I believe 98,000 a year.
And than you? You don't have to tell
Yes,
me.
way more than me.
Okay. And he voluntarily stepped down?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way you can handle that, you can go online, look for child and spousal support calculator. There's one that the government officially has, but lawyers have it as well. There's plenty that will, because that'll calculate the guideline support. Go off of those numbers that you already know and see what the support looks like. So you can at least go in and you're informed.
What's the name again?
Just do
Child support
Google search for
calculator.
child support calculator in California. Yeah. It should be, so the first three are going to be lawyers, because those are the paid ones. After that should be probably the government-sponsored one by the court. But it's better to use that one. They're all going to be relatively the same, but the court's is easier to use. So find out what your support will be based upon his old income. He's going to go in and say, well, I'm not making that anymore. Your response to that is, well, you're capable. Because by law, you are both required to work. You're both required to support your children. You're both required to work according to your capabilities. You already have proof what he's capable of. So the judge can say, well, that's awesome, you're not making that money. But for the purposes of support, we're going to assume you are making that money. And if you don't like how much I'm ordering you to pay, you better go back and get that promotion that you stepped down from. So you can still use those old numbers and play around with that.
And he's still using my joint account, still paying his stuff, and I already told him to take out his account, and he's still not paying it. So I don't know what to do. It's
Sure.
overdrafting my credit card. Yes.
Can't you remove him? You're a signer on it?
I don't know.
Or open up your own bank account.
I do have my own bank account, but he still hasn't used those accounts being charged. And it's
credit
linked
card
to
or
my
bank
credit
account?
card. It's a bank account, we both have joint account.